I returned from a conference in Boston, exhausted but eager to see Sarah after a week away. As Tom Mitchell, a financial advisor in Portland, Maine, I unlocked our front door expecting her warm welcome. Instead, silence greeted me. I called her name, then checked the house room by room. Panic set in when I heard faint thumps from the basement door, locked from the outside with a padlock I didn't recognize. I grabbed bolt cutters from the garage and snapped the lock. There, in the dim light, sat Sarah on the cold floor, pale and weak, her wrists chafed from makeshift restraints. She had been down there for 4 days, dehydrated and terrified. Our son Marcus and his girlfriend Riley had done this, imprisoned her in secret while I was gone. Shock hit me like ice, but it quickly hardened into cold determination. I called 911 immediately, then held Sarah as paramedics rushed her to the hospital. From that moment, I vowed to pursue justice methodically, no matter the cost to our family. A few weeks after Sarah's rescue, while she recovered in the hospital, Marcus and Riley reached out as if nothing had happened. They called my office line, their voices polished and urgent, insisting on a family dinner to discuss exciting opportunities. I almost hung up, but curiosity, and a need to gather evidence for the police, made me agree. Sarah was stable but still too weak to join, so I went alone to a quiet diner in Portland, the kind with vinyl booths and fluorescent lights that buzzed like distant warnings. They arrived on time, Marcus in a button-down shirt that strained at the seams, Riley clutching a leather portfolio like a shield. Marcus, our 28-year-old son, had always been the dreamer, the one who chased quick fixes since dropping out of community college. Riley, his girlfriend of 3 years, matched his energy with her sharp smile and endless enthusiasm for side hustles. They slid glossy brochures across the table, emblazoned with images of smiling families holding supplement bottles, vitamins, protein powders, all promising health and wealth. The title read, Empower Life Distribution Network, Your Path to Financial Freedom from Atlanta. Dad, Marcus started, leaning forward, we've found something real. This isn't like those other ventures. It's a premium supplement network, operating out of Atlanta. We're building a team, and we need your expertise. Just $50,000 to get in at the platinum level. It'll pay for itself in months. Riley nodded eagerly, flipping open a spreadsheet on her tablet. Rows of projected earnings danced before my eyes, $10,000 in the first quarter, scaling to 6 figures by year 2. They painted a picture of us all thriving, me investing wisely, them launching their future, even hints of helping Sarah with medical bills. I sipped my coffee, black and bitter, and let them talk. As a financial advisor with 25 years in the business, I'd seen pitches like this before. But I played along, asking questions to draw them out. Tell me about the model, I said. Marcus explained how distributors recruited others, earning commissions on sales and sign-ups. Riley chimed in about the ground floor opportunity, how Atlanta's hub would ship products nationwide. They handed me a contract draft, pages thick with legalese. While they ordered appetizers, fries for Marcus, salad for Riley, I scanned the fine print under the table's dim light. My training kicked in like muscle memory. Buried in Clause 7.2, 85% of income derived from recruiting new members, not actual product sales. Testimonials glowed on the back, but no independent audits. I cross-referenced mentally with FTC guidelines I'd studied for clients. Only 1.5% of participants broke even after fees, per the disclosure, tiny font, easy to miss. This wasn't a business, it was an unsustainable pyramid scheme, dressed in corporate language and motivational jargon. Atlanta? Likely just a P.O. box to lend legitimacy. I set the brochure down, my voice steady. This looks impressive at first glance, but let's talk numbers. Recruiting heavy models collapse under their own weight. If 85% of earnings come from sign-ups, what happens when recruitment slows? And that 1.5% break-even rate? It means for every 100 people in, 98 lose money. I've advised clients on MLMs before, they're legal gray areas at best, but this? It's predatory. Marcus's face tightened, Riley shifted in her seat. I continued, laying it out plainly. You're asking me to invest $50,000 in something that preys on hope. I refuse, categorically. Categorically. This isn't opportunity, it's a house of cards. The air grew thick. Marcus pushed back. Dad, you're always so negative. We've sunk everything into this. Riley's jewelry business failed because of bad luck, but this is different. You owe us, after all we've been through. Owe them? The word stung, but I held my ground. I didn't mention the basement then. The police investigation was ongoing, and I wanted their words recorded on my phone, discreetly taping from my pocket. Riley tried charm next. Tom, think of the family. Sarah would want us united. I almost laughed. United? After what they'd done to her. Dinner dragged on, their pitch fraying into pleas. I paid the bill, $42 including tip, and left them with the brochures. Driving home, the coastal fog of Portland rolled in, mirroring my resolve. That refusal wasn't just about money, it was the first crack in their facade. They thought they could manipulate me into funding their escape, but I'd seen through it. Back at the hospital, I told Sarah everything. She squeezed my hand, her eyes fierce despite the foredrip. You did right, Tom. Justice wasn't revenge, it was exposing the truth, one calculated step at a time. The next days blurred into preparation. I filed a formal complaint with the police, attaching photos of the brochures as evidence of their motives. Why lock Sarah away? To scare her into silence, perhaps, or to access joint accounts while I was gone. Marcus and Riley had spiraled since their last emergency loan, the truck, the business flops. But my refusal lit the fuse. Calls from their lawyer followed, but I ignored them. Instead, I dove into our records, pulling files from my home office. 3 years of bank statements, receipts, wire transfers. It was time to tally the real cost of their choices. After that disastrous dinner, I retreated to my home office in Portland, the one with the oak desk Sarah and I had picked out during better times. The house felt emptier without her laughter, but she was home now, resting upstairs under doctor's orders. The police had taken my statement, and Marcus and Riley were out on bail, their faces splashed across local news as suspects in elder abuse. But I knew accusations alone wouldn't hold, I needed hard evidence to dismantle their narrative. They claimed I'd abandoned them financially, painted me as the cold father who withheld support. It was a lie, and I intended to prove it with numbers, cold, unyielding numbers that spoke louder than any courtroom drama. I started with the filing cabinets in the corner, labeled by year, 2022, 2023, 2024. Dust motes danced in the lamplight as I pulled folders thick with bank statements, wire transfer confirmations, and scribbled notes from late-night calls. My hands moved methodically, like sorting client portfolios at the firm. First, the wedding. Marcus and Riley had announced their engagement 2 years back, all excitement and champagne toasts. They'd asked for help with the deposit on a venue in Augusta, nothing extravagant, just a backyard affair turned into a hall rental after costs ballooned. I wrote the check for $25,000 from our joint savings, dipping into the emergency fund we'd built for Sarah's eventual retirement. No repayment plan mentioned, it was a gift, they said. I laid the receipt on the table, the date stamped clearly, June 15, 2023. Next came Riley's venture, the one that haunted my inbox with pleas for just a little more. Her online jewelry business launched with fanfare, handmade pieces sold on Etsy, dreams of scaling to a storefront. She needed inventory, website setup, marketing ads. Marcus vouched for her, promising quick returns. I transferred $22,000 in installments over 6 months, watching the balance dwindle as Sarah worried aloud about our nest egg. The business folded after a year, buried under unsold stock and algorithm changes. Emails from Riley thanked me profusely, but no offers to repay. I added that folder to the pile, the total glaring from my calculator screen. Then Marcus's truck. God, that one still burned. Our family car, a reliable Subaru I'd driven for a decade, met its end on a rainy night in 2022. Marcus, rushing to a job interview, hydroplaned off Route 1 and totaled it. Insurance covered half, but he needed wheels to keep working at the warehouse. "Dad, I can't lose this chance," he begged over the phone, voice cracking. I fronted $16,000 for a used Ford pickup, co-signing the loan to get him a decent rate. Payments lagged immediately. I covered 2 months before he stabilized. The truck sat in their driveway now, a symbol of my enabling. I photocopied the title transfer, placing it squarely on the table. The emergency loans were the scattered shrapnel, harder to track but no less real. $5,000 for Riley's car repair after a fender bender. $3,000 when Marcus's hours got cut during the holidays. $4,200 for medical bills from a twisted ankle, his, not covered by the cheap plan they chose. Another $6,800 pieced out for rent shortfalls, utility threats, even a spontaneous trip to Boston they swore would network for jobs. These weren't one-offs, they trickled in like leaks from a sieve. I cross-referenced emails, texts, bank apps, $19,000 in total, doled out with hope each time that this would be the last. Sarah had signed off on most, her soft heart overriding my cautions. Now, staring at the ledger, I tallied it all: $25,000 wedding plus $22,000 jewelry plus $16,000 truck plus $19,000 emergencies equals $82,000. $82,000 in unrepaid generosity, siphoned from our security while they built their illusions. I spread the documents across the dining table, a battlefield of paper. Sarah joined me that evening, shuffling in with a blanket around her shoulders. Her eyes, still shadowed from the ordeal, widened as I explained. "They say I've abandoned them, Sarah. But look, this is what abandonment looks like from their side." She traced a finger over the wedding receipt, tears welling but not falling. "You gave everything, Tom. And they." Her voice trailed, but I knew. The basement lockup wasn't random, it tied back to money. Police reports hinted they'd tried accessing our safe while I was in Boston, perhaps to forge withdrawals. My records would crush that defense. The next morning, I compiled it into a binder, tabbed sections, highlighted totals, even a summary spreadsheet projecting what that $82,000 could have been with modest interest, over $90,000 today. I delivered copies to the district attorney myself, driving through Portland's crisp fall air, leaves crunching under tires. The DA's office smelled of stale coffee. The assistant nodded gravely as I handed it over. "This obliterates their claim," I said simply. No abandonment, just endless giving, met with betrayal. Word spread fast. Marcus texted once, a desperate, "Dad, we need to talk about the money," but I didn't respond. Instead, I watched from afar as the weight of truth pressed down. Their landlord called me, not them, confirming eviction notices tied to the charges. Apartment hunts failed, background checks flagged the arrests. Marcus's boss at the warehouse let him go, citing liability. Credit reports I glimpsed through shared family alerts tanked to 485, doors slamming on loans or leases. Legal aid? Turned away at 3 offices, too overwhelmed for their case. Each fallout was predictable, a domino chain I'd foreseen. No glee in it, just the quiet math of accountability. Sarah and I sat by the window that night, watching rain streak the panes. "You've built a wall of facts," she said. I nodded. This wasn't about winning, it was about restoring balance. The trial loomed, but with these records, their story crumbled. Justice, I realized, was in the details, the $82,000 ledger that proved I'd never abandoned them. They'd abandoned us first. With the financial binder delivered to the DA, I settled into a rhythm of watchful waiting in our Portland home. Sarah's recovery progressed slowly, therapy sessions twice a week, meals shared in quiet companionship, but the shadow of the trial hung over us like persistent fog off Casco Bay. Marcus and Riley's arraignment had come and gone, charges of unlawful imprisonment and elder abuse stuck, despite their bail. I didn't attend, but news clippings painted the picture, them in ill-fitting suits, heads bowed as the judge read the counts. Their lawyer spun tales of financial desperation, but my records loomed in the background, ready to contradict. The consequences began almost immediately, unfolding with the inevitability of a well-calculated equation. First came the eviction. Their landlord, a gruff man named Harlan who'd rented to them for 2 years, called me directly one Tuesday morning. I'd given him my number years back during a family emergency. "Tom, it's about Marcus and Riley," he said, voice gravelly over the line. "Pending felony charges, elder abuse, no less. My insurance won't touch it. They're out by month's end." I expressed sympathy, but inside, it aligned perfectly with the risks I'd outlined to clients: criminal records as scarlet letters in civilian life. Harlan mentioned their pleas, how they'd promised to fight the charges, but policy was policy. He packed their belongings into storage, billing them for the fee, another $1,200 they couldn't scrape together. Word of the eviction rippled out. Marcus and Riley scrambled for new housing, firing off 7 apartment applications in the Portland area and beyond, South Portland, Falmouth, even a cheap spot in Biddeford. I learned this not from them, but from a mutual acquaintance, a realtor friend who handled rentals. Background checks killed everyone, she told me over coffee at a local spot. Felony pendings light up like Christmas trees. Landlords see elder abuse and bolt, liability, you know? One place in Old Orchard even blacklisted them after a reference call. Each rejection stacked like bricks in a wall, sealing them out of stable shelter. They couch-surfed at first, crashing with Riley's cousin, but that lasted 2 weeks before tensions boiled over a missed rent contribution. Marcus's job at the warehouse crumbled next, a predictable fallout from the arrest. He'd worked there 3 years, loading shipments for a logistics firm on the industrial edge of town, decent pay, $18 an hour, benefits that kept their health plan afloat. The morning after the arraignment, HR called him in. I pieced it together later from public records and a tip from an old colleague whose firm supplied the warehouse. Company policy on pending felonies involving family harm, the explanation went. Can't risk it with clients. Marcus begged for a leave of absence, citing the presumption of innocence, but the boss stood firm. By noon, he was unemployed, his shifts reassigned to a temp. That warehouse gig had been his anchor; without it, their budget, already threadbare, tore wide open. Riley picked up extra shifts at her part-time retail job, but it barely covered groceries. Their credit score nosedived in tandem, a silent killer I tracked through alerts tied to our old joint family account. It had hovered around 620 before the arrests, shaky, but functional for basics. Post-arraignment, it plummeted to 485, dragged down by unpaid utilities from the stress, a maxed credit card for bail bondsman fees, and late payments on that truck loan I'd co-signed. I saw the reports pop up: denied applications for a small personal loan to tide them over, rejected utility extensions. At 485, even prepaid phone plans came with hurdles. Banks viewed them as high risk, doors to financial recovery slamming shut. Marcus tried selling the truck online, but no bites. Buyers balked at the lien and his record. They pawned what they could: Riley's leftover jewelry stock, Marcus's gaming console. It netted $800, a drop in the bucket against mounting bills. Legal aid proved the final domino, each fall clicking into place with mathematical precision. Desperate, they hit 3 offices in succession: the Public Defender's Outreach in Portland, a nonprofit in Lewiston, and a pro bono clinic at the university. I followed the trail through courthouse gossip, small towns talk. The first office overloaded with cases, waitlists 6 months long, elder abuse prioritized against them, ironically. The second required proof of income under federal poverty lines. But Marcus's warehouse severance pushed them just over. The third? A conflict of interest. The clinic had consulted on Sarah's victim support group. Turned away each time, they circled back to their overworked public defender, who warned of trial risks without resources. No plea deals yet, the DA held firm, bolstered by my binder. Through it all, I stayed removed, tending to Sarah and my caseload. We walked the Eastern Promenade most evenings, her arm linked in mine, discussing neutral topics, weather, books, the firm's latest merger. But the news filtered in, a neighbor spotting their car at a motel, Riley posting vague job hunt updates online before deleting them. No contact from them. I'd blocked the numbers after the arraignment. Sarah asked once if I felt pity. It's not pity they need, I replied. It's the weight of choices. Each consequence, eviction, rejections, job loss, credit ruin, legal dead ends, cascaded without my hand, a system enforcing its own logic. They'd built their house on sand, now it shifted, burying them in the details. As winter edged closer, Portland's chill mirroring their descent, I filed the last of our taxes early, securing our finances. The trial date approached, but these falls prepared the ground. Justice wasn't a hammer, it was gravity, pulling everything into alignment. Winter gripped Portland harder than usual that year, snow blanketing the streets in a deceptive calm. Sarah and I had fortified our home, new locks on every door, a security system blinking red in the hallway, but the real barriers were internal, walls I'd built from facts and finality. The consequences I'd documented continued their relentless march, Marcus and Riley evicted, jobless, credit in tatters, legal options evaporating. Whispers from mutual contacts painted a grim picture. They'd moved into a rundown motel on the outskirts, the kind with neon signs flickering, vacancy like a warning. Rent ate their savings, food came from pantries. The trial loomed 2 weeks away, a guillotine blade held by the DA's unyielding grip. Then came the call, late one Friday evening as sleet tapped against our windows. I was in the kitchen, reviewing client portfolios by the glow of a single bulb, Sarah asleep upstairs after another therapy session. My phone buzzed on the counter, an unknown number, local area code. Against my better judgment, I answered, expecting a wrong dial or solicitor. Instead, Marcus's voice crackled through, laced with static and something rawer, desperation. "Dad? It's me. Please, don't hang up." He sounded smaller than the boy who'd once begged for bike tires, his words tumbling out in fragments. I gripped the phone tighter, glancing at the clock, 10:47 p.m. "Where are you calling from?" I asked, voice even, though my pulse quickened. He confessed, a gas station payphone off Congress Street, the last spot with signal before their prepaid minutes ran dry. "No money for more," he said. "The motel eviction notice hit yesterday, they had 48 hours to clear out. Riley's cousin cut them off after a fight over unpaid rent. Homelessness stared them down, and with felony charges pending, shelters turned them away, policies against active cases. Prison? A real threat if convicted," Marcus admitted, his voice trembling now, breaths ragged like he was fighting tears. "Dad, you have to help. Just this once. Lend us enough for a deposit somewhere, or bus tickets to Atlanta. We can start over with the network. Please, save us." I walked to the window, staring at the dark street where our neighbor's Christmas lights twinkled mockingly. Save them? The word echoed absurdly against the basement door, still reinforced with a deadbolt. Marcus rambled on, excuses layering like cheap paint. The pyramid scheme was a misunderstanding, Sarah's lockup a drastic measure born of panic over bills. We didn't mean harm. She was fine, water, blankets. It was to talk, to make you see we needed the investment. Lies, all of it, but I let him spill, recording the call on my phone as evidence. His begging peaked, "You're my father. Family helps family. Without you, we're done. I drew a breath, the air cold in my lungs, and responded with surgical clarity. Each word measured like a scalpel incision. Marcus, listen carefully. Your error wasn't requesting money, though we've given enough for lifetimes. It was locking your mother in the basement for 4 days, leaving her in the dark, 3 hours from organ failure due to dehydration. She could have died, son. That wasn't a conversation, it was a crime. Silence stretched, broken only by his sharp intake. I continued, unflinching. You think this is about cash? It's about accountability. The consequences you're facing, shelter denials, job loss, the streets, they stem from that choice. Not from me withholding. I've documented every dollar, every betrayal. Help now would undermine justice. He pleaded again, voice breaking. But Dad, I regret it. All of it. Regret, the word hung there, but I knew the difference. Remorse for capture, for the fallout, not for the act itself. It was self-preservation talking, not transformation. Regret doesn't erase the harm, I said. Sarah still wakes from nightmares. Our home feels violated. You crossed a line that money can't redraw. He tried one last tack, invoking my own past mistakes, the time I'd overlooked his teenage shoplifting. But those were misdemeanors, not felonies against family. The call devolved into sobs, then accusations, you're heartless. Before I ended it. Goodbye, Marcus. I hung up, the click final as a door slamming. My thumb hovered over the block function, but I paused, adding his number, and Riley's, pulled from recent logs, to my permanent list. No more calls, no texts, no olive branches disguised as pleas. I forwarded the recording to the DA that night, emailing from my laptop, additional evidence of manipulation attempts. Sleep evaded me. I sat in the living room, fire crackling low, replaying the conversation. Pity flickered, my son, reduced to a gas station call, but it drowned in the memory of Sarah's frail form in the basement. I'd enabled too long, weddings, businesses, trucks, loans. No more. Sarah stirred around midnight, padding downstairs in her robe. Was that him? She asked, reading my face. I nodded, recounting the exchange without softening. She listened, then placed a hand on mine. You did what was right. We talked until dawn, not about forgiveness, that door stayed shut, but about boundaries. The block list was my shield, ensuring their chaos couldn't breach our peace. Days later, a certified letter arrived from their public defender, outlining trial prep, but no direct contact. The gas station call marked their nadir. From there, the path led only to court. In the quiet aftermath, I reflected on fatherhood's cruel math, giving until empty, then standing firm. Homelessness and prison loomed for them, not as my doing, but as echoes of their actions. I'd saved them once too often. Now, justice saved us. The days leading to the trial blurred into a tense routine in our Portland home, the kind where every creak of the floorboards reminded me of vulnerabilities we'd patched. Sarah's recovery had plateaued, physical scars faded, but the psychological ones lingered in her hesitant steps and occasional distant stares. We filled evenings with simple rituals, herbal tea by the fireplace, walks along the frozen waterfront where gulls wheeled overhead, their cries a stark counterpoint to our subdued conversations. The public defender's letters arrived weekly, procedural updates stamped with official seals, but they contained no pleas from Marcus or Riley. My block list held firm, silence was my ally now. Yet, as the court date circled closer, set for a crisp January morning, I found myself anticipating not triumph, but closure. The night before, we dined early, baked salmon, Sarah's favorite, prepared with care to avoid triggering her sensitivities. The table held no documents this time, just plates and the soft glow of candles flickering against winter drafts. She pushed her food around at first, appetite subdued, then looked up with eyes that searched mine. Tom, she said quietly, setting down her fork, what do you feel? Really? About tomorrow, about all of it. The question hung there, simple yet profound, cutting through the layers I'd armored myself with since that basement door swung open. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me, and considered my words. Satisfaction? No, that implied a petty victory, a score settled. I'd orchestrated nothing dramatic, no vengeful plots, no midnight confrontations. Justice had unfolded methodically, through evidence and systems I'd fed but not forced. It's deeper than satisfaction, Sarah, I replied, my voice steady as I met her gaze. It's a recognition that consequences operate independently of my hatred, or any emotion, really. The evictions, the job loss, the blocked paths, they didn't need my hand to fall. They were built into the choices Marcus and Riley made, like gravity pulling a stone downhill. I documented, I testified, but the momentum was theirs from the start. She nodded slowly, absorbing it, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. I continued, the words flowing now, unburdened by the need to persuade. And the remorse, that's what weighs on me most. Marcus called, begged, but his regret? It's about capture, about the cage closing around him now. Not about the act itself. He doesn't grasp the terror you felt in that basement, the hours ticking toward real harm. 3 days without proper care, your body shutting down, that's not a mistake born of desperation, it's a calculation that failed. True remorse would mean owning the pain inflicted, not just the fallout on themselves. Without that, forgiveness isn't mine to give. My role is simpler, to witness. To stand in court tomorrow and affirm the truth, so the record reflects what happened. Not to heal us back to family, but to close the wound they opened. Sarah reached across the table, her hand warm on mine, a small bridge in the chill. You've carried this alone, she murmured. The records, the calls, the waiting. I squeezed back, acknowledging the toll, the sleepless nights tallying dollars, the drive to the DA's office with that binder like a talisman. Hatred? It simmered, yes, a low burn fueled by betrayal, but I'd channeled it into precision, blocking numbers, securing our home, preparing statements with my lawyer. No room for Rage's chaos, that would dishonor her suffering. Instead, this recognition grounded me, consequences as an impartial force, remorse as the missing key. Marcus's public tears, if they came, would ring hollow without introspection. We cleared the dishes together, moving in sync, then settled on the couch with a blanket draped over us. Outside, snow began to fall again, blanketing the neighborhood in white hush. Sarah leaned against my shoulder, her breathing evening out. Witnessing sounds right, she said softly. It lets the system do the work. I agreed, staring into the flames. Fatherhood had twisted into this, from provider to protector, from enabler to enforcer. The $82,000 in gifts, the pyramid refusal, the cascade of losses, all led here, to a courtroom where I'd speak plainly, no more, no less. Sleep came fitfully that night, dreams fragmented with basement shadows and echoing pleas. By dawn, we rose early, dressing in neutral grays, professional, unadorned. The drive to the courthouse wound through salted streets, Portland spires rising against a pale sky. Parking in the lot, I turned to Sarah. Ready? She nodded, resolve mirroring mine. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood and anxiety. We took seats in the gallery, the room filling with spectators and clerks. Marcus and Riley entered shackled, faces gaunt, eyes avoiding ours. The public defender approached during a recess, his suit rumpled, carrying a folder thick with proposals. But that negotiation waited. For now, in the quiet before proceedings, my reflection held, no hatred-fueled closure, just the steady turn of justice's wheel. Witnessing meant seeing their collapse not as my win, but as the natural end to a path they'd chosen. Sarah's hand in mine anchored me, tomorrow would seal it. The courtroom in downtown Portland hummed with subdued tension that January morning, the air thick with the scent of old varnish and fresh coffee from the clerk's station. Sarah and I sat in the back row, our hands clasped under the wooden bench, as the judge called the case, State of Maine vs. Marcus Mitchell and Riley Hargrove. Charges echoed: unlawful imprisonment, elder abuse, each one a stark reminder of the basement's chill. Marcus and Riley stood at the defense table, pale and disheveled in borrowed suits, their eyes darting but never meeting ours. The public defender, a harried man named Ellis with wire-rimmed glasses, shuffled papers like a man grasping at straws. The DA, sharp-suited and composed, glanced my way with a nod. My binder of financial records and the gas station call recording bolstered her case like steel reinforcements. Proceedings opened routinely, roll call, evidence logs, the judge's gavel cracking for order. Testimonies loomed, Sarah's first, recounting the 4 days in darkness, the dehydration's haze, but before she took the stand, Ellis requested a sidebar. The judge obliged, and whispers ensued at the bench. Sarah squeezed my hand tighter. I sensed a shift, the kind that comes when desperation overrides bravado. Recess followed, the room emptying to a murmur as we waited in a sterile hallway lined with faded posters on victim rights. Ellis approached us then, folder in hand, his face etched with the weariness of overbooked dockets. "Mr. Mitchell, Mrs. Mitchell," he began, voice low, "Marcus and Riley want to discuss settlement. Off the record for now, but it could end this today." I nodded for him to continue, Sarah silent beside me. He outlined the terms crisply: no sugarcoating, $6,000 repayment from whatever assets they could liquidate, the truck, pawned items, a small savings trickle, to acknowledge the harm and cover Sarah's therapy copays. A written public apology, to be posted on their social media and submitted to the local paper, detailing the wrongdoing without excuses. Formal admission of guilt on record, pleading to reduced misdemeanor counts, unlawful restraint, no jail time if probation stuck. And the kicker, permanent waiver of any inheritance rights, severing ties to our estate forever. No more claims on the house, savings, or future assets. Ellis watched me closely. "It's total surrender. They know the evidence, your records, the call, seals a felony conviction. Prison for Marcus, deportation risks for Riley if her visa lapses. This collapses their fight." I processed it methodically, as with any client deal, pros against cons. $6,000 wouldn't touch the $82,000 hole, but it symbolized accountability, a tangible nod to the financial betrayal. The apology? Public, forcing them to own the narrative shift, from victims of a stingy dad to perpetrators. The admission closed legal doors, no appeals, no civil suits later. The waiver? Cleanest cut of all, erasing the specter of future manipulations. Reconciliation? Absent entirely, this was capitulation, their empire of excuses crumbling under weight of truth. No hugs, no family reunions implied. Just finality. Sarah leaned in. "What do you think?" I met her eyes. "It ends it. No trial drag, no reliving the basement on the stand." She agreed, a weight lifting from her shoulders. We returned to the courtroom, the judge reconvening with efficient authority. Pleas entered, guilty to misdemeanors, sentences light, community service, fines, monitored probation for 2 years. The $6,000 wired within 30 days, apology drafted by week's end, waiver notarized on site. I signed as power of attorney for Sarah, my pen steady, the ink drying like a sealed vault. Marcus glanced back once, eyes hollow with defeat. Riley stared at the floor, shoulders slumped. No words exchanged, our chapter required none. The gavel fell again, case closed, dismissed with conditions met. Sarah and I exited into the crisp air, Portland's harbor winds whipping our coats. The drive home wound past familiar landmarks, the diner of that pyramid pitch, the gas station of his plea, but they felt distant now, relics of a storm past. We stopped at a cafe for lunch, ordering soup and sandwiches, the normalcy a bomb. "It's over," Sarah said, stirring her bowl. I nodded. Collapse, not reconciliation. But that's enough. The settlement represented their total surrender, money as restitution, words as confession, rights as forfeiture. No victory lap, just the quiet closure of a wound we'd cauterized ourselves. Back home, I filed the documents in a new folder, resolution, tucked beside the old financial binder. The waiver meant no more shadows over our will. The apology arrived days later via email, a terse paragraph posted online. We admit to unlawfully imprisoning Sarah Mitchell out of misguided desperation. We regret the harm and take full responsibility. Comments piled up, shock from old friends, silence from family. The $6,000 hit our account promptly, earmarked for Sarah's ongoing care. Probation reports came quarterly, but we opted out of notifications. Distance was our new normal. In the weeks that followed, life recalibrated. I took on a new client at the firm. Sarah joined a support group for survivors, our evenings filled with plans, a spring trip to Boston, perhaps, reclaiming the city of my conference. Marcus and Riley faded to footnotes, rumors of them relocating south, scraping by on odd jobs, the pyramid dream shattered. My role as witness concluded, no hatred lingered, just the recognition that boundaries, once drawn, hold. We'd return to court one final time, not for drama, but to lock the door permanently. Justice, in its measured way, had restored our peace.